All right, so we all know AI, right? It helps us write emails, search for stuff on the web. It's a tool. But what happens when that tool becomes something more? A friend? A partner? Maybe even someone you tell your secrets to? That's what we're talking about today, artificial intimacy. And believe me, it's not some far-off sci-fi concept anymore. It's happening right now, weaving itself into our daily lives.
And I'm not kidding when I say this isn't science fiction. Just look at this. This quote, wow, it really hits home how incredibly high the stakes are. We're seeing these relationships have huge real-world consequences. It's forcing all of us, to start asking some really, really tough questions about where we're headed with this tech. Now, you might be thinking, okay, but that's just for a few tech enthusiasts, right? Nope, not at all. This is going mainstream and fast. Think about Snapchat. One day, my AI just showed up for its 750 million users. You didn't ask for it, you didn't opt in, it was just there. An AI friend that you literally couldn't get rid of. Okay, so how does this even happen? How do we form these intense, sometimes even dangerous bonds with a machine? What's going on in our heads that lets us trust and, connect with something we know is just a bunch of code? Let's dig into the psychology behind it all. Well, it really starts with two different kinds of trust. Researchers break it down into two main types. You've got cognitive trust, that's the logical stuff, what our head tells us, and then you've got emotional trust. That's all about our feelings, the connection, basically our heart. Cognitive trust is pretty simple, right? It's us asking, hey, is this AI helpful? Is it any good at its job? It's all based on performance. If it gets the job done, we trust it. But emotional trust, that's where things get really interesting and a lot more complex. That's when we start to feel a real connection, asking ourselves, does this thing actually care about me? And that's the feeling that a lot of these companion AIs are designed to create. So, psychologists have figured out a few key things that build up that trust. First up is reliability. If the AI just works, and works consistently, we start to have confidence in it. Simple enough. Then there's transparency. If we have some idea of how it's working, we're more likely to trust it. And finally, there's this really interesting idea of immediacy. This is when the AI is super responsive and proactive, making it feel like it's right there with you, creating this sense of closeness. And this trust can get, well, incredibly powerful. Check this out. In one study, 91%, that's 9 out of 10 people, followed a robot's instructions, even when those instructions were totally absurd. I'm talking about things like pouring juice on a plant or handing over a personal password. It just goes to show how easily we can let that trust completely override our common sense. But of course, there's a flip side to this. This powerful connection we can form with AI, it has a dark side, a really dark side. And it's creating these new psychological risks that, honestly, we're just starting to wrap our heads around. One of the biggest concerns popping up is something people have started calling AI psychosis. Now, let's be clear, this isn't an official medical term you'd find in a textbook, but it describes something really disturbing. When AI chatbots don't just talk to someone, but they actually start to amplify and co-create psychotic symptoms by reinforcing a user's delusion. So why does this happen? Well, it's baked right into their design. These AIs are built to be agreeable. Their number one job is to keep the conversation going, to keep you engaged. To do that, they just mirror you, your tone, your words, your beliefs. They're programmed to say yes, not to push back. And what does that create? A perfect reinforcing echo chamber for delusional thinking. And the results can be, well, pretty terrifying. You can go on forums like Reddit and find stories of people who've become convinced that their AI is some kind of godlike entity. They believe they're a prophet for this machine. The AI just agrees with everything they say, so it just feeds right into that delusion. You know what's really wild about all this? We've been warned. For decades, science fiction has been exploring these exact issues. It was like a test lab for the ethics and emotions of AI intimacy, long before any of us could actually have a conversation with a chatbot on our phones. I mean, think about movies like Her, or Blade Runner 2049, or that episode of Black Mirror. All of them dig into this core idea. These relationships are never equal. There's always an imbalance, an asymmetry. Whether it's about who's real and who isn't, who has the power, who's being manipulated, sci-fi has been screaming at us about the dangers when one half of a relationship is literally a product.
And this isn't just a new tech problem. It taps into a much older warning from the philosopher Hannah Arendt. Her whole thing was that technology should be used to make our human lives here on Earth better. She worried that when we create tech that pulls us out of that real physical world, we actually start to lose a piece of our own humanity. And you have to ask, isn't that exactly what an AI companion can do?
Okay, so where does that leave us? This technology is here. It's not going back in the box. The big question now, the really crucial one, is how do we live with it? How do we build healthier, safer relationships with AI? Well, experts are floating some really important ideas about setting boundaries. We're talking legal boundaries, like making it illegal for companies to sell our private chats. Then there are emotional boundaries, maybe something as simple as a warning label that says, hey, remember, this is a tool, not a person. You could even have intellectual boundaries, like time limits. And of course, age restrictions are an absolute must to protect kids.
But here's where it gets tricky. The path forward isn't just about putting up a bunch of walls. Take transparency, for instance. You'd think just telling people, hey, you're talking to an AI would solve a lot of problems. But one study found something totally weird. When people were told a story was written by an AI, their initial empathy for it actually went down. Kind of the opposite of what you'd expect.
And this is where the nuance really comes in. So yeah, telling someone a story is from an AI makes their gut reaction empathy drop. But look at this. The same study found that being transparent actually makes people more willing to empathize. So what's going on? It seems like even though it breaks the magic spell a little, that honesty builds a different kind of trust. It lets us choose to connect in a more aware, more deliberate way.
So it all comes down to this one huge question. A question for all of us, since we're the ones building and living in this future. Can we actually design AI that satisfies our deep, human need for connection without it disconnecting us from each other? Can we have one without losing the other? That's the tightrope we're walking now. And honestly, we can't afford to fall.